authorized.
Alright folks, welcome to the tutorial. First thing we're going to do is put the heat gun on somewhere about 1050 degrees Fahrenheit and begin heating. We're going to start on this right side here based on the cracks on the device, and we're going to give it some heat. This is 1050. It's pretty intense heat. It's definitely a little hotter than like what a blow dryer would do, but this is critically important to get that much heat so we can ensure that the adhesive that is currently there it separates from the glass. As you see, our senior tech, Rob Williams, is touching the device to make sure to kind of feel it out and see how hot it gets. This guy's done thousands of iPads, so at this point he kind of knows how to gauge it by temperature. Now we're going to take a small little spudger. This is a metal spudger. We're going to have a link to this on this page where you can buy this thing. It's probably the most effective tool for opening iPads. And we're just going to create a little incision in the bottom right, and we're going to try to slide our way up. And we got a crack. It's very typical that cracks happen when you're trying to slide the device up. It's not a big deal. Just continue going. At this point, what we got to do is give it a little more heat so that we can start kind of around that area where we created that crack, and then work our way up and get that glass out of the way. We're just trying to loosen the adhesive on this. We're at still 1050 on the heat gun. A temperature-controlled heat gun is also a very good idea in this case. All right, so now we're going to take this metal spudger tool and just gently, because we've heated it up so much, just get under that glass. Being mindful, of course, of the fact that right to the left is the LCD. If you go in even a half a centimeter from where Rob is, right there, you could puncture the LCD and that would render the device broken or otherwise malfunctioning. You don't want to do that. So Rob's just sort of sliding up on the glass. As you see on the top, that's a part of the glass that's not cracked. So he's able to, because of the heat, he's able to actually slide that metal, that double-sided metal spudger up there to separate the glass from the frame and to loosen that adhesive. All right, so he's just going to sort of shift it to the right so we can get a better shot at the antennas. This is a cellular iPad 3. So on the top, we're going to take the temperature down to 800. We're going to put a piece of glass or something otherwise protective over those antennas so that we don't melt them, because they can be melted. And Rob's just going to be heating on 800 degrees the top of the glass there. Again, those antennas are very, very fragile, and if you heat them too much, they will start to warp inwards, and it will look cosmetically like a disaster. You don't want to do that for yourself if you're doing a DIY, or for your customer if you're doing a repair for somebody. So he's got a little bit of heat on that, and now we're going to attempt to come at it from the right side here and get a little bit of lift. The thing to keep in mind here is those antennas tend to stick to the digitizer. They do more so on the iPad 2, but I got my phone in the way there. That was real slick of me. Sorry about that. But on the iPad 3, they still stick, but they're not as crazy. So what you'll see Rob does here, what you need to do, especially if you have a cellular iPad 3. If you don't, just disregard this part and follow the same protocols without putting the glass on top and just peel the glass off. But he's going to make sure here in a second that he is above those cables. He's going to make sure that he's above the cellular antennas that are right in that area. So he's kind of peeking in. As he puts that spudger in there, he's peeking in the side. He's going to kind of open it up here from the right side, the top right, and just sort of have a peek. There we go. That's the antenna, and it's not stuck to the inside of the digitizer now because we gave it enough heat, which is critically important, and he was able to separate it via that spudger. All right, so now we are going to take a plastic spudger and put it on the top there to hold that part open so that the antenna does not re-adhese to the digitizer and that we don't run into any problems thereafter. This iPad was significantly damaged around the home button, so that right there, which is the Wi-Fi antenna, is exposed, and we're just going to peel that glass out of the way of the Wi-Fi antenna. If on your device that you're repairing, if the Wi-Fi antenna is not exposed, then you just have to be particularly careful around that area when opening the screen and when going around it with a spudger not to cut it, because it is very easy. So just approach with a lot of caution. All right, now we're about to open the device up. We've got it heated basically in every area, and we're heating it to the left to give that final side that's all together a little more heat so that we can pull this glass apart. We can open the glass. It opens just like a book, and voila. All right, now we're going to take the 4 LCD screws out that perimeter the LCD. You've got one in the lower right-hand corner, as you see. A good thing to maybe put them in is just something like that that can hold screws that you know isn't going to go anywhere. And then you've got the screw on the top right corner, as you see Rob taking out there. You've got the top left corner screw, as Rob is again taking out, and then he's going to go for the bottom left screw and get that thing the heck out of there. It's not exposed. He just had to expose that screw because there's a little bit of glass around there, which we're going to get off in a second when we do the sort of cleaning phase of the iPad. Now that he's got it exposed, he's going to pull the screw out and we'll be good to go from there. All right, now you got to lift the LCD out of the frame. You can do it with tweezers, you can do it with the spudger tool, basically anything that'll allow you to get on that right-hand side and pull that LCD up. It's got a cable. That cable is attached to the board, as you see where Rob is pulling that tape up. That tape is facilitative tape. It should go back when you put the device back together, and the LCD is held in by a small little clip which you can unclip with your fingers and pull right out. That's the LCD. Simple as that. Now what we're going to do is take the same facilitative tape off of the digitizer cable. That's the glass and the touchscreen cable. And we're going to do that same thing with unplugging those clips with your fingers. The reason we're doing with fingers is sure you could use a metal tool and sure you could use some other stuff, but it's probably not the safest bet to use metal on this motherboard. And interestingly, if you have any degree of nail, it's the best strategy to use is using your fingernails. So now we're just going to separate this digitizer from the frame. It's still got some adhesive adhering it to the frame on the left-hand side that you see Rob is trying to kind of get away from there. And once he does that, he's going to grab that flex cable kind of from the bottom because it's adhered right where his pointer finger is, the right pointer finger right there. And so just sort of lift it up and gently, because this thing can easily damage the board where it plugs into, gently kind of just bend it to the right, and then we're going to just gently pull it out. And that's how it works, folks. You just pull it out. And now we've got the entire digitizer separated from the frame, and it is time to clean the device up. All right, so all this glass around the side is pretty easily removable via some nifty tools. First, we're going to take this bezel off, though. The bezel is the outer perimeter of the device that comes on iPads 2, 3, and 4. That thing is just adhered on there, so you can just pull it off with your hands, get underneath of it, make an incision point with a sharp tool, and then just take that off. And the bottom here, he's got some glass coming off. That's okay. That's actually probably helpful for him. All right. So now we got to get this glass off. So we're going to turn this heat gun to 800 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to blast a little bit of heat around that glass just to loosen it up from the adhesive so that we can get it the heck off the frame. Otherwise, it is going to be a pain in the butt, and you don't want that to happen. So again, we're going to apply the strategy of using the glass over the device so that we don't heat up the battery. We don't want to put any extra heat on the motherboard. We don't want to put any extra heat on that charge port right there. We basically want to be as safe as possible while putting the glass back over, because that is a good protectant. And then we're going to get this stuff out of here. So using the same metal spudger tool, we're just going to sort of get under there, pry it underneath of that glass, and get that messy stuff the heck out of the way. The important thing to keep in mind here is that if we didn't heat it, this would just be so hard to do, and you may have to apply extra force in that situation, which could eventually lead you to have some sort of hand orientation motion that you don't want, which could potentially puncture the battery. And that is something that you definitely don't want, because replacing a battery on an iPad 3, now you've got yourself into a real mess in addition to the screen replacement. Screen replacement, hey, you can handle that. People can handle that. But replacing a battery, now you're talking about taking basically everything out. It becomes a little bit of a pain in the butt. So we're giving a little more heat just to get, just to basically avoid that problem that we're talking about there, and to ensure that the rest of this stuff gets cleaned up nice and good. And see, as we heated it and we gave it that extra heat, now this stuff is just coming right off. Heat is your best friend as long as you can protect the motherboard and protect the battery and protect all of the other small components. Heat is just your best friend here. Rob's just going to continue to take off this adhesive here. One of the main reasons you want to do this is once you put the device back together, it's going to be very difficult for things to seat if you don't have all this stuff out of the way. He just pulled out this pretty nifty tool. It's a similar tool to the other tool, but this one has a different kind of edge on it that really allows you to scrape the iPad in a manner that really can get that stuff, helps you to get that the leftover glass off of there. I had to kind of peel some glass off the back there. You want to be mindful of that because the glass on the back will certainly scratch the device. Now back to that awesome tool. That thing is just really pretty awesome. Again, we're going to link to that entire tool set that you can grab both of those spudgers down below. It's literally what we use. It's what a lot of other folks use. It's one of the most effective tools for DIYers and repair companies to get both the leftover glass as well as the leftover adhesive out of that device. It just works wonders. Here he's going on the right hand side of the device, and it just pulls off like butter. It's really just a magnificent tool. We're going to keep kind of scraping up, getting as much of that visible stuff out of the way, because again, the screen won't sit right if it's there, and if it does, you may have some cosmetic imperfections because the glass will sort of stab and damage the reverse side of the screen. And on this iPad, which is a black one, you're definitely going to see that, and we want it to look as pristine as possible. So Rob's just going to continue to use that tool and get as much of this adhesive off as possible. We got a little bit of adhesive there to the right by the power flex cable. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take care of these corners that are dented in, which is pretty typical of an iPad repair, with what's called a G tool. We're going to link to the site below where you can get one of these nifty tools for replacing, fixing dented iPad corners. That's what these things are made for. It's really pretty awesome. You basically just put it on the device. You turn that crank that Rob is turning in whatever direction that'll allow two of these parts that basically come together and push. As you can see here, it pushes the iPad corners back into place. It forces them back into place. It's really one of the most nifty tools that we've ever come across. And if you're a DIYer or if you're a repair company especially, and you're serious, you need to grab one of these tools. It's really pretty awesome. So there we are. We just bent that corner back out to sort of fix it so that we can put the bezel on. Because here's the thing: if you don't bend the corners back out, and they're dented in, and like this one right here, and you try to put your screen on, you're going to have a heck of a time getting that screen on. And you may break the glass, which is no bueno for you, certainly no bueno for us if you bought a part from us, and it's just something that you want to avoid. If you don't have a G tool, because we don't expect everybody to have one of these tools on them, then you could use a Dremel. You could use pliers if you're really just not too caring about how it's going to sort of look cosmetically. You can use pliers, and really it's going to look fine. The screen will look fine. You just got to bend that stuff out so that when you put the bezel back on the device, that it all fits, and when you put the screen back on, the glass fits flush without any overlaps or any kind of problems. So here Rob's just going to continue to crank this G tool out and get this corner in a place where we can put that bezel on and where the screen's going to sit flush. All right, now to put the bezel back on, we're going to adhese the perimeter of the device. This is very, very small. I think it's 2mm adhesive. You can get this stuff on the web. We'll put some links to it below where you can get this adhesive. Sure, you could use some adhesive you may buy at Home Depot or Lowe's or something. Just ensure that it's adhesive, that it's this thin, and it's double-sided tape in this manner, and it's pretty sticky. You wanted to make sure it's pretty sticky. If you, on the teardown, didn't significantly damage that bezel and it's still in place, then that's okay. You can leave the bezel in place as long as no corners are dented in. You don't need to take that out. The reason we took the bezel out is because the corners were dented pretty significantly. We had to use that G tool to reshape everything, and now we got to use a new bezel to put everything back. So we're just going to put adhesive around the perimeter of the device where that bezel goes so that we can place the bezel on and proceed with the repair. Rob's just going to kind of situate the sides and refine everything a little bit, cutting the corners. On the top left corner here, he's actually just put one strip in that little groove. You could either put an entire long strip across that whole area or put one strip on that groove like Rob did there. He seems to think that works better, and I agree, so you could do that too. Now we're going to just line the left side of this device up with some adhesive so that we can put this bezel on and proceed with the repair. All right, now we're going to the bottom. On the bottom, we're going to do basically the same exact thing. We're just going to put an entire strip across the whole bottom so that we can make sure that that bezel sticks correctly and there are no spots where it's not sticking. All right, we're just going to cut that corner on the right-hand side there, place that adhesive so that it's all situated nice and cleanly, and then we're going to go from there. All right, now we're going to peel this adhesive off so we can put that bezel on. We got some pretty nifty tweezers. We can link to those below as well. You could use any tweezers that you have as long as they have a pretty sharp ends to them. You want to be able to grab this adhesive. Even here, Rob's having a little bit of trouble grabbing adhesive there. Every now and then you got to take a pliers or something and fix your tweezers, kind of bend them back inwards, and or just get new ones so you can maintain as much precision as possible, especially when doing repairs on iPads. So now we're just peeling all this adhesive off so that we can put that bezel on, and then after that we can proceed with the rest of the screen repair. Got that last top part right there that covers the antennas. Nothing crazy, just trying to get under it. We're going to go from the other side here. Let's see if we can do this on the right-hand side without the whole thing trying to come up. All right, Mr. Adhesive. Gotcha. Okay. So now we have got all the adhesive off of the frame, and we need to place this bezel on. These bezels you can get on the web. We have the bezels. You can find them basically anywhere, and maybe you're going to reuse your bezel there. It's just critically important to put them in a position that is how they're supposed to go on there. On the right-hand side by the volume flex cables, there's a small little rectangular groove, and that indicates that you're in the right place with that. That goes on the top right-hand side, as well as grooves on the bottom for kind of the home button and charging port situation, as you see right under Rob's hand when he lifts it out. You can see that kind of rectangular groove right on the bottom by the charge port. The best strategy, and we really suggest you do this, is to hit the corners first and to place them into place, and then work on securing the rest of that bezel on the sides so that you can kind of get the corners in place, and then you can get all that extra space out via that kind of side strategy there. So corners first, sides second. Now Rob's going to take tweezers. You can take anything that'll basically kind of serve this purpose and really just solidify that seal on that bezel so that we can make sure that this thing is just totally sealed in. We don't want it to move. We want it to be sturdy. We want it to stay in place, especially once we put that digitizer on there. Everything's going to work well if this thing's 100% secure. So we're going to just sort of work our way around the device and make sure that happens. All right, we're on the bottom there, sealing it up, and it looks like we're good to go. All right, what Rob's doing here is he's just putting the adhesive around the perimeter of the device that we're going to use to stick the iPad digitizer back on. So it's pretty self-explanatory, and you can watch Rob as he does this. He's basically just going to cut out and outline the entire perimeter of the device with this adhesive. This is the double-sided adhesive that we speak so highly of, and really it's some of the best stuff you can get. You can use some double-sided tape that you have elsewhere as long as it's 5 millimeters, about that same size in thickness. But at the end of the day, this stuff is we just trust it. It's super strong, and it's just super easy to deal with. We really love it. So now he's just going to kind of perimeter the device with this adhesive and put us in a place where when we put this digitizer back on, we've got the adhesive straight. Now you can use the stock adhesive that came on an iPad, and in most cases our parts come with that. You can just sort of use that stuff if you want to and disregard this adhesive part, but we really just like being able to control every facet of the adhesive, and that's why we use this stuff, kind of using our own adhesive here. Now we're going to lay a strip on the bottom, but look at that little home button area where you've got, what Rob's going to do is going to place this adhesive there, and then he's going to stop on the home button, because it's important to kind of not adhese that whole area up, because it'll end up being kind of gunky and messed up, but instead put a small strip of adhesive, one of those 2mm roll strips of adhesive, right along the bottom of where the home button is. That's kind of the best way to do this, and at the end of the day, we're trying to mimic originality, and that's one of the best ways. So here he goes with that. Just going to cut a super small strip of that. Oh, nope, he's going on the left-hand side. Okay, on the left-hand side, this is critically important, folks. On that left-hand side, he put that adhesive there and not the 5mm thick adhesive, because you need to put thin adhesive on that side. It's the only way to prevent the cable from sticking to the adhesive and messing up the close. All right, that's critically important on the left-hand side there. So now he's got that little strip and he's putting it on the bottom near the home button. It'll just help for an extra seal. And we want that. We want the seal to be super tight. All right, now onto the home button. So you have to transfer the home button from the old device onto the new device. On the device that we were repairing, that thing was already separated just because the device was pretty darn messed up. So we just had to kind of clean it up and get it to the point where it's ready to go on there. Everything seats so flush, and it should. So what we've got is an X-Acto knife here, and we are scraping the adhesive off of that wing. That's the home button wing, so that we can put our adhesive on there so that there's no bubbles, there's no gaps, there's no problems. It needs to be as exact as possible. As you can see here, we're scraping off a little bit of that black paint on that home button wing, and guess what? Doesn't matter. See you later, black paint, because we don't need you. All right, Rob's doing a pretty good job here of getting all that stuff off, and as you can see, with each scrape, he's getting adhesive off of there. That adhesive would be a problem, it would be in the way, and it's imperative that you get that stuff as clean as possible. Now we're going to go for the left side of the wing. That's a pretty sharp tool. That's just a regular hobby knife and or X-Acto knife. You can find those at Home Depot or Lowe's. You could use your fingers to sort of get that stuff off. You could use whatever resources you have available. The whole point is you just got to get as much of that stuff off as possible so it looks as clean as possible as it does there. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try to get tape on the home button, on the bottom part of the home button, as well as on that wing, so that we can secure the home button assembly to the digitizer and proceed with the repair. The best stuff for us, again, that 5mm tape. It works awesomely, and we're going to cut two pieces that basically fit the size of those wings, and we're going to get her rolling. Now, what we want to do for that home button to make sure that it's totally adhered to the screen and doesn't move, because as a crooked home button is a funky looking iPad, I'll tell you that much, is we're going to put a small little strip of 2mm adhesive on the bottom, right on that little bottom latch there, so that when we put it down on the digitizer and we sink it into that hole, even though we got the wing to cover it, it's extra secure in place and that thing isn't moving. It's going to look pretty awkward having a sideways home button on an iPad. Trust me. All right, so Rob's going for the place. He's basically just going to align it as aligned as possible. It's really pretty easy as long as that bottom kind of layer, that horizontal layer, is flush with the bottom of the device. And on the top, you can kind of tell that that button looks right. Then if you flip it over and you see the button looks right, that's how you know you're in the right place. Looking good, looking good, looking good. All right, so now we're going to put this wing on. The wing is critically important to basically put it back in the exact same fashion that it was when you took the device off. If it's lower or higher, you're going to have a hard time seating the device. So one of the rules of thumb that we use is basically kind of a 3/4 position up. We put it up 3/4 up from the top, and there's those two little circles in the middle. If you see those two little circles right in the middle of that wing, they should be centered directly over the back of the home button. There's like kind of a little spacer there that allows for the click to happen. Now we're going to test it, push it in, make sure it works, make sure it feels good, give yourself a good thumbs up, and then we're going to move on from there. All right, here's the digitizer assembly now with the iPad, with the home button, seated on there, and we're all good to go. Our digitizers and most digitizers come with tape in these areas. You want to be you want to be super careful taking that tape off because you don't want to damage that critically fragile wire right there. There's adhesive on the back of those cables in most cases, so you just want to take that stuff off. And now we're going to proceed with putting this on the device. And this is critically important. What you want to pay attention to, Rob's going to just plug this this digitizer into the device where we took it out of. Those lines indicate as far as the thing can go. Once you push it in and you know that it's secured and in place, you can close those latches. Again, the best way to do it is with your fingers, as Rob is doing here. But now he's going to push down and sort of re-adhere that cable to the frame. And you see how he's pushing that particular area? That's got to happen that way. It's got to look just like that. It's critically important for the cable to fold and for that device to be situated. If it's not like that, stop now and make sure that it is fitting in like there. If you need to put some adhesive underneath of it to make it stick in that exact manner, go for it. Now we're going to put the facilitative tape back over the digitizer cables, and the same with the LCD once we get that bad boy in. All right. Now for the LCD. That tape, by the way, we think it's just critically important to put back. We've experimented with not putting the tape back, and nothing has ever happened. But with Apple devices, you always want to be sure, and you probably should put that tape back. So now we're going to plug the LCD in. It goes in the same exact way. After we got the digitizer in, clip it in, make sure it's aligned, and we're going to close that latch with our fingers, and then we'll be good to go. We're going to take that facilitative tape that we placed right on the heat shield above the LCD input and just put it back in place so we can make sure that, hey, we're mimicking original as much as we can, putting this thing back together the right way. Seat the LCD in, make sure it's all in place, and then you'll be good to go from there. All right, we're just going to do a quick test here to make sure everything's working. As the film is still on, we just want to turn this device on, and you should too at this point. There we go. We got the beautiful Apple sign. We just want to make sure everything's working, everything looks good, and we did everything correctly. All right, so we're going to turn the device on and just give it a little test. You want to make sure that all your touch sectors work so that you've got a great screen and everything went well, everything's plugged in correctly, and you're good to go. So Rob's just going to sort of test all the sectors here. Interestingly, on the newer iOS versions, you can do that, whereas the old ones you had to get in there and bypass that passcode or either have the passcode. All right, so now that we've tested it, we've turned the device back off. We're going to put these 4 LCD screws back in the corners, and we are nearly done, my friends. Let's plug those LCD screws in. Got the bottom left one. They don't have to be super tight, they just have to be tight enough. You really don't have to hand crank them until your wrist falls off. You just have to get them in there so it's pretty secure. All right. Now we're going to do the lower right hand corner screw. Get that one in there. Make sure it's secure. No broken wrists. Going to go to the top here, grab a screw, and we're going to shoot for the top right screw. All right, top right screw. Let's get it in there, get it secure. Don't break your wrist. Good to go. Now we're going to go for the top left and secure that screw. Now we're nearing upon the end of the device where really it's like the most critical part where the seal happens. Throughout this entire time, we kept that LCD covered by some paper and some film so that there was no dust that got on here. And Rob's wearing a finger cot. It's just basically a finger glove. You could wear latex gloves, however you feel like doing. You could use a rag to clean the stuff off to basically prevent fingerprints and to also make sure that you can use something that's clean to get the dust specks off the LCD when you're closing it. Now we're going to peel this adhesive that we put on the outside so that we can get ready to close the screen because we are darn close, my friends. Darn close, sirs and ma'ams. All right, peeling the bottom adhesive. We're going to peel that little strip in the home button that Rob put on there to be precise. Now we're going to peel this left strip and make it happen. If we can get it up, there we go. All right, then we're going to go on the top, and we're going to peel these strips off of the top right over the antennas. Oh, correction. We're going to have to take that strip, we're going to have to take that adhesive off. I think, what the heck happened here? Oh, never mind. We peeled the strips. Okay. All right. Now we're going to peel the strip on the left-hand side and pull it off. And now we're going to go to that small little strip that we said that we had to place very specifically. That's the 2mm double-sided adhesive. It's critically important that that's there. I think Rob must have pulled off the entire thing, just like I thought he did on the other one there. So we're just going to place that thing back into place and then just peel the top layer off. You don't want to peel everything. I guess that goes without saying, but sometimes it's pretty easy to peel the entire thing off, and then, hey, you don't even have any adhesive there. It's not going to stick. All right, so once we get our tweezers in the right place here, we're going to situate this thing, and now we're good to go. All right. Okay, we're going to take that little corner piece of adhesive that we put there to make sure that everything is filled. We want those corners to stick. They're critically important. The corners, if anything, really need to stick. We don't want any lift after we close the screen. Okay, now you want to place the screen. You basically want to place the left side first. That adhesive is off, so now we're placing that stuff on the left-hand side so that we can begin to clean the LCD and then proceed with closing the rest of the device. So at this point, you know, get any further dust that's on there off. You can use a rag. You can use plastic gloves, latex gloves rather. You could use finger gloves that we've got there. We'll link to those below as where we can get some of those. They're pretty nifty. They give you a lot of control, and now we're just going to kind of make sure that, see, this is what we were talking about before. This cable right here has to slip right in, which it will because it's in the right place. The cable is in the right place because we adhered it when we put the digitizer in there. We're also going to have a picture below of a close-up on that, so you can really see what you're doing there, so you can really make sure that this thing goes in right. On our premium quality screens, there is a lot of film that needs to be taken off of the device, and that is an indication of quality. It's something you should look for. And now we're going to take all that film off of the bottom of the device. You got strips on the left-hand side. You got strips on the right-hand side. You basically got strips everywhere. It's a strip fest, strip party. All right. So Rob's got that one caught on the wire. It's just going to sort of reach in there and pull that out. There we go. We're good to go. All right. Basically, all the adhesive is off now. We are nearing the close, and we're about to make this happen. So the thing to do next would be, if you really want to see that there is no specks on the LCD, is take that film off of the top. You want to take that film off of the top so you can really see. So now we can really see. It's so clear. You can see our cameras and our lights on the top. This thing just looks beautiful. All right. And before we do the close, we want to just do a last bit of inspection to make sure that there are no specks or dust or any of that stuff on the device before we do that close. And Rob's going to go on there with that finger caught. See, this is where this is so critically useful. You get those last little bits of dust out there, and maybe even smudges if you have any smudges on the LCD, to make sure that this is a total clean close. That's what we're looking for, clean close. If it's your device and you really don't care, and if a little bit of dust gets on there, not a big deal. It's not going to, you're probably not even going to see it when the device is on. But if you really want it perfect, then getting under there with some finger cots, or maybe even some small microfiber rags or towels, is probably the best bet. As you close, look around to see if there's any broken glass anywhere. There's a couple pieces of glass right there on the LCD that got caught up. That's easy for that to happen too. Just be mindful of that. You don't want to scratch the digitizer as you close it, because that'll happen if you don't get those pieces of glass out of there. All right, I think we're just about ready to close this thing. We're pretty close getting all this last minute stuff out. It's the last minute that gets you. But because we kept the LCD pretty clean the entire time and covered, we were able to keep it smudge-free and mostly dust-free. All right, now we're going to go and get this thing closed. So we've got the left side sealed. We're just going to sort of shift it over to the right, put it all in place, and you'll kind of feel with your fingers how to do that. You sort of situate it in place within that bezel, and kind of seal it in place around the device. All right, so Rob's going to seal it on the right-hand side. He's going to seal it on the left-hand side. He's just kind of taking his thumbs and kind of putting it all in place. He's going to take the screen and kind of shift it over just a little bit to the left to kind of make sure it's all great. Now we're going to turn her on, and she's good to go. So that's it, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Get your parts from us. We got the best stuff, and we got your back. Thanks for watching, folks.